everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jenny. I wanted to start you off on a special project that I have for the summer. I've chosen 6 books to do some special vlogs about, some kind of secret TBRs, if you will, a la, well, I think Kayla from Books and Lala does them a lot, and then there's lots of other booktubers who may have started the trend or continued the trend of themed reading vlogs. And for me, I can't read like 6 books in a week. I just don't have time for that, or 8 or 10 or whatever. But I do want to, read it along a theme and take you with me. So we're starting off with 3 books that were recommended to me by my sister and my mom. So I am starting off with The Gown by Jennifer Robson. This was recommended to me by my mom, and she read it several years ago now, so I've had it on my shelf for a while. And the reason I took a while to get to this one is because I was waiting to read the 3rd in the Great War series by Jennifer Robson, and I did read that. I'm not sure if it was last year or the year before. So I am getting to this one now, and this is set in 2 different time periods: 1947 London and 2016 Toronto. And it is 3 perspectives. We have Miriam and Anne in 1947 London, and we have Heather in 2016 Toronto, who is trying to uncover a mystery left to her by her grandmother, and her grandmother is Anne. So it's kind of a fun unraveling, and it's all about the Embroidery Guild, which is Norman Hartwell's fashion house, who designed the wedding dress for Queen Elizabeth II. And it all centers around this embroidered gown. So right now I am at chapter 11, and so far I'm really enjoying it. It's exactly what I was hoping it would be, which is a fun read. Like, Jennifer Robson's characters are always well done. There's always a good level of complexity to the characters. They're not stereotypes, and she also does a great job of setting the scene for you, so you get to feel comfortable in whatever era you're in. And so far I'm finding it really good. So yeah, so far this recommendation is holding true.
Terrifying moment of Vitality's company that just lost of Ivan. That's the story of Vitality. When it becomes scary, they become scarier. 3 minutes left. Alpha on last.
Hey everyone. I finished The Gown by Jennifer Robson last night, and I really enjoyed this. It is tri-perspective. We're following Anne and Miriam in the same timeline. Miriam, whose family were killed by the Nazis in World War II, and she subsequently becomes an artist. And Anne, who also lost family to the war but lived in England, and both of them are embroiderers in I don't know why I can't contain his name, in the famous Norman Hartnell's dress designer boutique, where he designed the Queen's, Princess Elizabeth's wedding dress and gowns for the Queen and princesses. So he was very high, prestigious, and it's about that time of what was happening around them while they were doing the embroidery for the gown. there was a lot of people who were, and press who were trying to get in and get the goods, and they tried to bribe them and do all these things to them. And then you have Heather, who is Anne's granddaughter, and Heather does not know her Anne's history. She thinks she knows, but Anne never talked about her past, and so she's hidden a lot of things, and all of the reasons for that is talked about in the book. And I really enjoyed it. I don't think it's my favorite of Jennifer Robson's that I've read, but I did love the theme of Miriam as an artist, and I loved Anne. I thought Anne was a very sympathetic character and actually quite believable in the situation that happened to her and in the way that she reacted to it. Heather was probably, the modern day person, was probably my least favorite character, but I think that's because she is kind of a connection between the past and the present, obviously, and a conduit through which the story needs to be revealed. And so sometimes when a character is the conduit, they're not given enough juice, they're not given enough grit, and I think that was the case with Heather. So in terms of whether or not my mom's prediction that I would like this was correct, I would say yes, she was correct. I did enjoy this. Definitely not, it's not a 5-star read for me, but definitely a solid 4 and very enjoyable. And there were some moments that were very well written. Jennifer Robson is very good at capturing. She often actually she always has some good female friendships in her novels, which I really enjoy. And she also is really good at her research. So I think she presents things well. You know, she shares information without it seeming like she's just dropping historical bits of information. Like, it really weaves well with the story. So in terms of historical fiction, I really do enjoy Jennifer Robson's writing. And so my mom is a yes for her recommendation on this one. And I will check in with you again once I have started the next book in this vlog, which is going to be my sister's recommendation. So see you again soon.
All right, darling, look. I put so much.
Good morning. So I realized that this reading vlog, I've been neglecting to check in about this book, The White Bone by Barbara Gowdy. So this was recommended to me by my sister. She sent it to me for my birthday probably 3 or 4 years ago, saying, you know, had you ever read this book? And I said no. So she sent it to me. And it's about elephants. And I have to say that I would not gravitate towards this type of a book on my own. This is not something I'd pick out, because reading from the perspective of animals is just not something that I would gravitate to naturally. It's just not. But this book was the finalist for the Giller Prize and the Governor General's Award. So it's a Canadian author. Barbara Gowdy is an award-winning author of the romantic Mr. Sandman, the recipient of the Marian Engel Award, and I love Marian Engel. She's been a finalist for the Commonwealth Writers' Prize, repeat finalist for the Giller Prize. So she's a really, you know, prominent Ontario-based writer. And this is a really unique story. I've never read anything like this. I think that her interpretation of elephants and her interpretation of the culture of elephants is really what you learn about here, is fascinating. There's a whole belief system that you learn about, the structure of the herds, the matriarch, the way that different herds name themselves. Like, she just created this amazing world that you just step into. And it's it's really fascinating to contemplate whether or not this could be possible, that the way that the elephants think and interact and feel could be like this is quite, it's just been very enveloping for me. I'm very wrapped up in it. So as you can see, I'm almost done. And I started this mid-June because I had finished the first book, The Gown, which I've already shared with you for this vlog. So I've just been enamored by it, really wrapped up in the story. The premise, the plot of the story is that the elephants are being slaughtered by hind-leggers, which of course are humans, and they are looking for this magical or foretold in legend or myth or lore white bone, and the white bone will lead them to a place of safety, a place that is lush and full of food and water, a place where they can live in peace and not be under threat of slaughter from humans. And so you follow several different herds of elephants, several different main characters who all have different qualities and quirks and challenges that they're facing, but who are all interconnected because of the way elephants work in their cultures and their herds and their species. They are very connected, and their intelligence is brimming over, and it's quite a fascinating story. So if you love animals, I say you definitely should read this. I also love how the author is very, she doesn't, make anything pretty or gloss over things like defecation and mating and all these types of things. There's a kind of roughness, a kind of gory reality to being an animal that she depicts here very well. So I would say too, though, I would warn you that if you have a hard time with the death of animals, then maybe you wouldn't want to read this, because like I said, it's very raw and open about the slaughter and the brutal murder of the elephants for their tusks and their feet. So it's quite graphic in places. So if you are uncomfortable with those types of depictions, then I would say you maybe don't want to read this, because it does have that language, those situations. And it was interesting. I was reading one review who was criticizing the book for not making the elephants have feelings and be upset that their herd members have been murdered. And I don't feel that way at all. I feel like they all are upset. They all weep. They all mourn the loss of their loved ones, but they can't do it in this way that humans would do it. So I was very confused as to what this person expected the author to say about mourning, or to include about them feeling bad about the death of their friends and family. When you're running for your life, do you really have time to dwell on the horrors that are surrounding you? Anyway, so I really think it's been really well done. I will check in again when I've finished it. I don't know if I'll have more to say. I'm very curious to see how it ends. I have no idea, and I feel like the ending could be... This is one of those books where the ending could make me feel amazing and just think, wow, it's just an incredible story, or it could also be unsatisfactory because you want certain things to work out, like you want them to find the safe place, and is there even a safe place? So yeah, really, really curious to see how this ends, and I'm going to finish it today or tomorrow. And then I'm going to move on to book 3 for this vlog, which is Finding Jane, I think it's called, but I will introduce it to you. I will try to be more of a good book blogger with that book than I have been with this one, but I will check in again at least one more time about this, even if just to say that I finished it. Hey everyone. I finished The White Bone by Barbara Gowdy last night, and this was a fantastic read. I am so glad that my sister recommended this to me. It didn't really end exactly how I wanted, but I think the ending kept consistent with the way the story was told in a very raw and realistic way, I would think, in terms of how the animal kingdom works and how there's a different sentiment and a different reality for animals that humans don't understand or share. And I think that the author just really captured something new in this novel that is just not, it's just not something that I think a lot of people understand or contemplate that often, is how the lives of animals really are. And this is a really unique novel. I've never read anything like it. I think that it is an amazing feat. And yeah, I'm really, really glad that I read it. And I would recommend it if you are interested in the lives of animals, although with the caveat that this is there's a lot of violence in here. There's a lot of gory kind of the reality of living in the African Sahara and like being an animal and not having human sensibilities about things. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking of reading this. And also, if you don't like reading about animal cruelty, then I probably wouldn't read it either, because this is about elephants trying to get away from humans who are slaughtering them, and they're trying to find a safe place, and the white bone is what will lead them there. And we're mostly following one herd of elephants, Mud being our main character, who has a very unique and wonderful story. But there's also a few supporting elephants that are super interesting to read about, and some other animals. And so yeah, I would recommend this. Hey everyone, I thought I would check in about this reading vlog. I have started looking for Jane by Heather Marshall. I'm just getting almost halfway. So this book is good, but it is suffering a little bit from the fact that I just read a historical fiction, The Gown, and also in this vlog, with a similar layout. So 3 different narrators, and for some reason that formula, having just read it, has been jarring a little bit for me in getting into this book. The other challenge I've had with this is I'm not a huge fan of Heather Marshall's writing. Some of her metaphors and descriptions are a bit clunky for me, and some of them just, like, she was describing too many things, giving too many things a comparison that didn't need to be in the writing. So I found now that I've gotten further in that I'm not as bothered by it as I was when I first started. But for the first couple chapters, I was like, why is she saying that? Why is she saying that? And then the other thing is, whenever you have multiple narrators in a story, inevitably you attach onto one more than another. So the story is taking place in 3 timelines. The beginning in the 60s, with Evelyn, who is a woman who is pregnant and she has nowhere to go. She is not married. She is not in the traditional setting for being pregnant at that time in society. And so she is brought to a home run by nuns by her parents. She's older though. She's not she's not a teenager, she's in her 20s, to give birth to the baby, give it up for adoption, and then move on with her life. And she doesn't want to do this, but she has no choice. She has no alternative that she can do once she is in this place, because it's because it is essentially like a prison. It's run like a prison. They aren't allowed to interact with other people. They aren't even supposed to interact with their fellow women who are also pregnant. So it's very militaristic, and they're very degrading to these women, as was happening, all over the place, and may even still happen today, with unwed women and getting pregnant. So that's our first timeline. Our second timeline is a woman named Nancy in the late 70s, early 80s. She discovers something about her parentage that she didn't know, and she also helps a friend to go get an abortion, and it's not a safe abortion. And so she's kind of this mid, like 1980s character, and we're understanding what options she has and what options her friends have in this society. And then we're with Angela in current day, or I think it's 2017 or 2018, and she is in a relationship. She's married to her wife, and they are experiencing infertility, and they're going through fertility treatments. She's also been adopted in her life, and she discovers a letter, and she's trying to find the person who the letter was addressed to, because the letter is also about an adoption situation. And so you've got these three perspectives, and you're following these women as they evolve and as they move through Canadian society in the late 60s to the 2000s, and the different options they have available to them for birth control and for conceiving and for having children. So these are all very important things, and I'm learning a lot about the history of the striving, like abortion activism basically in Canada, which is great. Some of it I already am aware of, but I wasn't really, fully, I haven't studied it as per se. So I was aware of some of this history, but haven't studied it. And so I'm enjoying that aspect of it. I don't feel particularly connected to the characters, and I think that there's just a lack of depth to their decisions and to their scenarios for me in the overall narrative that I would have preferred to have more connection to. But it is still, it's doing its job, it's telling the story, and I'm just going to keep going with the story. So I'm going to bring this one with me. I'm heading out tomorrow to Vancouver Island for an artist residency, and I will be bringing this with me to keep reading, and I anticipate that I will finish it in the next week. And then this vlog will wrap up after that, and I will kind of I'll give a rundown in the end of my overall impressions of the 3 books and how I think as they were recommended to me, how successful I think those recommendations were. So I'll check in again when I finish the book. Hey everyone. So I finished Looking for Jane by Heather Marshall last night. And this book had one of those things that I hate happen in it, which I can't reveal without spoiling this book. So, yeah, I'm gonna put spoiler on the screen while I'm talking about that, and then take it off when I'm not talking about that. So that if you wanna read this and you don't wanna be spoiled, then you are warned. This book has 3 characters that you're following: Evelyn and Angela and Nancy. They're in different eras, but they're interconnected. So Evelyn is our young mother who is pregnant and is in a home for girls where they're going to remove her child. Nancy is in the next generation, experiencing abortion and helping with the underground abortion movement. And Angela is the modern day woman who gets wrapped up in a mysterious situation from the past. Throughout all this, you're learning history, but after reading the author's note, it's a scenario that was set up in multiple cities across North America during the time when abortion was illegal, before Roe v. Wade in the States, and before 1988, I believe, in Canada. So at the time, like when I was reading it, I thought that I was reading something that actually happened. It's not quite that. She kind of created the network based on different networks that she researched. So this isn't, and obviously this is because these people were operating illegally underground. So it's not like they kept meticulous records of their actions. They couldn't, or those records would incriminate them. So she had to kind of put these things together based on her observation, like based on conjecture, based on like research that she compiled things. So great. So I'm going to do the spoilers. The whole time that you're reading this story, you believe you're reading from one perspective. Evelyn, the character of Evelyn. And you are reading from Evelyn, and then you're not reading from Evelyn. You're reading Maggie, because Maggie assumed Evelyn's name. And I personally hate it when authors do this. I find it very unfair to a character-based reader. I think if you're a plot-based reader, not that big a deal. Oh, it was her all along. This like, oh, it fooled me or whatever. I have attached myself to who I believe this character is. And when you tell me it's not her, it's someone else, I really don't like that. I really don't like it. I actually find it a rather cheap way of writing a story. And Nancy ends up being Evelyn's baby, but it was Maggie's baby. And the original Evelyn is told that her baby died, which is not true, for which she commits suicide. So, like, the level of tragedy involved in that scenario for Evelyn is, unbelievable. And the twisting of that story between the two characters, to me, was not necessary. I feel that revealing that Evelyn was friends with Nancy's mom would have actually been a more powerful and meaningful female relationship connection than to make it all work out and be like, oh, it was her daughter all along, and this whole thing. I don't like that. It's so Disney fairy tale, not realistic, and to me I just felt insulted and I felt duped, which I always feel when this plot twist happens in books. So I really don't like that. And so it made the book go from a 4 to a 3-star for me. So all the information I learned, like there was some very compelling story in here about being a mother, choosing to have a child or not, having that choice taken away, all those things that are super, super important. But the ending and the way that plot twist happened just soured me to the book, unfortunately. So I'm going to give you my final thoughts on whether or not this was a good pick for me, for my sister and my mom, in a final wrap-up video when I talk about these 3 books during this reading vlog. But yeah, that's it for my thoughts on Looking for Jane. Hello everybody. All right, so I wanted to wrap up this reading vlog and just go through the books that I read during it. So this was a fun experiment for me. I don't get a lot of book recommendations from my mom and my sister. They might send some here and there, like it's kind of been just a few over the last few years. So it was really fun to explore these recommendations and see how they align with my reading taste. The Gown by Jennifer Robson. So because I had read Jennifer Robson before, this recommendation was pretty spot on. I know Jennifer Robson's work, historical fiction. She has female-centered stories. This one featuring the gown of then Princess Elizabeth in her wedding. So I really I enjoyed this. I thought it was well done. I can't say that I fall in love with Jennifer Robson's books, but they're good enough that I enjoy reading them when I'm reading them, and they do stay with me. I think the characterization she's very strong in that. So especially the character of the artist Marion in here, or Miriam. Is her name Miriam or Marion? Miriam. She was a very, very compelling character to me, and so I think this was a good recommendation, and I certainly will always keep an eye out for Jennifer Robson's work, and if any of the plots seem to be centered around something interesting in history that I think, you know, would be of value, then I will certainly pick them up. The next one was The White Bone by Barbara Gowdy. I don't even think I'd heard of this book when my sister bought it for me for my birthday a few years ago and recommended it highly. And I would not have picked up this book on my own because I just don't tend to go towards books that are centering animals. It's just not something that compels me, but this was so interesting. It was so different. It's a type of book that you're just not going to read every day. If you're looking for something to kind of shake up your regular reading, I think this is a great one. It is mystical. It is speculative in the fact that we can't ever really know what animals think or do or feel, but this is an interpretation that I think felt very true and authentic and interesting. As I said before, if you can't take animal cruelty or kind of those harsher parts of the animal world where there's things that kill things and eat them, and mostly humans that are terrible hunters and poachers, then proceed with caution. But in terms of an interesting narrative and, you know, another way of looking at the world and what's important that I think humans often forget, then I would definitely recommend this one. So yeah, holding this one in high regard. If my sister recommends something that I wouldn't usually read again, I will probably take her up on that. And then Looking for Jane by Heather Marshall. This was recommended by both my mother and my sister. They have both read it before me. So this one was a little bit of a miss, but they could never have known that. Although there was another book my mother recommended to me years ago now. This is probably 4 to 5, maybe even more than that, maybe 8 years ago, that I read that had a similar plot twist to this one. Or I think it's a trope, actually, a trope in novels. And she nor my sister could have known that I actually detest that trope. Like, I can't get behind why authors do it. I think it's misleading. I think it's dishonest. I find it insulting in a lot of cases. So as much as I enjoyed learning about these scenarios and the people, and I think that this is a good book for people who need more perspective on motherhood and the choices around motherhood and the importance of a woman being able to have choice around her own body, then I think that this would be really good to read, because it covers a lot of different scenarios: adoption, abortion, forced adoption, the lives of adopted children, their own infertility, the struggle between making decisions about your own body when politics and other people's opinions are being forced onto you, the mental health realities for a lot of women when they are struggling with these decisions. It's all covered in here. So in that aspect, it was good. I just don't enjoy that particular trope, and it really did make me angry at the end. I feel like the ending could have been stronger for me if it would have been a bit more realistic and relied less on this serendipitous, hiding in plain sight trope, which I just find very problematic and dishonest for the reader. A character reader. I think if you're a plot reader, you like this trope. I think if you're a character reader, it's very disorienting and frustrating. So if you've read this and you know what the plot twist is, please let me know your opinion on this plot twist. I do go, earlier in this vlog, I do talk about the plot twist, and there's a spoiler written across the screen. So, that's where that information is. And if you forwarded that so that you wouldn't hear it, then please come back when you've read it and let me know, because I am really curious about how other people feel about these types of tropes. But I just find it, I just don't enjoy it. So overall, I think both my mom and my sister have a good enough handle on my reading taste to that I would take their recommendations again. But I will proceed with caution, and I'm going to let both of them know that that particular trope is one that I detest, and please don't don't recommend any books to me that have that in it, because it makes me so angry. All right, so that is the end of this reading vlog. Thank you so much for watching, and I will be back again soon with another video.